Tonight on 7 News, 4 million people in the firing line from New South Wales to Noosa preparing for Cyclone Alfred's brute force.
Breaking now, a terror scare against a Sydney mosque. Threats of mass murder, just like Christchurch. We're live with shocking details.
Donald Trump turns his back on Ukraine. It is a moment in history the world might live to regret.
2 hurt in a powerful explosion at Hurstville. 1 man may not survive.
A new maths test for Year 1 kids as our schools get a multi-billion-dollar rethink.
Exclusive, work begins ridding the Harbour Bridge of rust, so it's spick and span.
And the Cyclone plays havoc with footy this weekend. The AFL delayed and the Rabbitohs game moved from Brisbane to Sydney.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Angela Cox and Mark Ferguson.
Good evening. 4 million people are being warned to prepare for impact with Cyclone Alfred on a collision course with Brisbane and power likely to be knocked out for days.
On our side of the border, flash flooding is expected in the northern rivers, with the cyclone forecast to dump almost a metre of rain.
Every beach from the Sunshine Coast to Byron Bay may be closed. It didn't stop some. Cyclone Alfred creating 6-metre waves and leaving its mark. That's the bloodied face of Mick Fanning. Stitches needed for the surfing legend as another offered warnings.
It's a bit scary, you know. Hopefully, like I say, it stays off the coast.
Not a chance. Authorities now predicting the Category 2 storm will soon turn west, tracking for Brisbane's northern suburbs, possibly Caloundra.
The overnight modelling shows that the cyclone has firmed. It is serious and it is happening.
More than 4 million people in the cyclone zone, 1.7 million homes.
It's obviously a major concern for New South Wales. Tropical cyclone warning that we haven't had in the state for decades.
Already the panic buying has begun. Rice, pasta, bottled water stripped from shelves.
Keep coming, keep coming.
But for thousands of residents, it wasn't shopping bags they wanted filled. It was sandbags, and hundreds of volunteers turned out to dig deep and help.
It's a good workout, and you're helping out people at the same time.
We're doing our best. I mean, let's face it, if a surge comes.
Up and down the impact zone, residents in the race to protect their homes.
So many people here this morning.
This is unreal. This is ridiculous.
Got a missus at home that's 9 months pregnant, so...
Queues tailed back kilometres. The wait took hours.
Sometimes you've got to do these things, haven't you?
Alfred expected to make landfall sometime Thursday or Friday, the first cyclone to do so since Zoe in 1974. The warnings today, ominous.
This is going to be a major event. It could be, you know, one of the top 5 or 6 most costly natural disasters in Australian history.
Almost a metre of rain is forecast to fall over 3 days. Lismore braced, still recovering from the devastating 2022 floods.
The Northern Rivers has gone through hell over the last few years.
And spare a thought for the crew of HMAS Choules, dispatched to rescue a solo sailor and now just 100 kilometres east of the Eye. The skipper with a warning for Brisbane.
Yeah, they need to brace themselves, that's for sure.
While on the coast, the calm before the storm, with prayers for a little luck at the end of the rainbow. Chris Reason, 7 News.
As Alfred looms, no region is more nervous than the New South Wales Northern Rivers, almost 3 years to the day since that deadly flooding of 2022. Angelique Opie is in Byron Bay. Angelique, the storm is well and truly brewing.
Mark, beaches at this popular tourist spot are shut, as are all the others on the north coast. The swell getting dangerous, the winds becoming stronger, and it will likely worsen over the next 48 hours. Meanwhile, up north at Tweed, sandbagging has begun, with fears cyclonic rains will collide with high tides due later this week. Earlier today, we were in Ballina, where panic buying has begun. Shelves with pasta, rice, soup stripped bare, and spare a thought for those in Lismore, where they're understandably on edge after marking the 3rd anniversary of the town's worst floods ever just last week.
OK, Angelique Opie, thank you. To breaking news now. Police are urgently investigating terrifying threats of a mass shooting at a Sydney mosque. Taylor Aiken is at Parramatta Police Headquarters in Parramatta tonight. Taylor, the details are chilling.
Incredibly disturbing, and the Australian Islamic House at Edmondson Park saying it received this threat on Instagram that the mosque would be the target of a Christchurch-style mass shooting event, echoing that terror attack carried out by Australian man Brenton Tarrant, in which 51 people were killed in a mass shooting in 2019. A major investigation is tonight underway after the mosque reported the threat to police, saying in a statement they are profoundly concerned by this threat and are taking it with the utmost serious. The threat also coming at a time during the holy month of Ramadan, with hundreds expected to gather at this particular mosque for evening prayer. Police say they will be stepping up patrols in the area under Strike Force Pearl to keep worshippers safe. The Premier also saying in a statement that this is incredibly disturbing and that threats of any kind, racist threats of any kind, will be met by the full force of the law.
Taylor Aiken with the latest from Parramatta. Donald Trump has delivered a potentially catastrophic blow to Ukraine, suspending all US military assistance. It could now condemn the country to Russian rule and is a seismic shift in global security, especially for those who've long considered themselves America's allies.
Thank you very much.
An American president about to turn his back on an ally at war.
Somebody doesn't want to make a deal, and if somebody doesn't want to make a deal, I think that person won't be around very long.
A move that will be viewed as a wartime betrayal and a punishment for President Volodymyr Zelensky.
This country has stuck with them through thick and thin, but he said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time. And he better not be right about that.
Donald Trump's anger and frustration has been obvious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
So have the clues.
But you're either going to make a deal or we're out.
Clearly, he wasn't bluffing. A White House source confirming the president has been clear that he is focused on peace. We need our partners to be committed to that goal as well. We are pausing and reviewing our aid to ensure that it is contributing to a solution. In short, end the war or I will. A gift for Russian leader Vladimir Putin.
He is not interested in ending the war. He thinks Russia is winning.
It also sends a terrifying message to all of America's allies. Just hours earlier, the UK Prime Minister told the British Parliament,
"But to succeed, this effort must also have strong US backing."
But this is the beginning, probably, of the US exit from Europe.
The President is expected to formalise the halt in aid tomorrow when he comes here to the capital to give his comeback speech, his first address to Congress since his re-election.
His decision coming after a meeting with his top defence and national security advisors. It means the latest shipment from the US, $1 billion worth of weapons and ammunition, will be stopped immediately in its tracks.
Well, I just think he should be more appreciative.
That's unlikely now. As the bullets start to run out, Russia is reinvigorated and Donald Trump puts America first at any cost.
Let's go live now to US correspondent Rob Scott in Washington. Rob, where does this extraordinary decision leave the rest of America's allies?
Well, Mark, that's a very good question, but you'd have to imagine if this is the way Donald Trump is prepared to treat a friend when they're in the middle of fighting a war, well, then all bets are off. And of course, this also raises some extremely awkward questions for Anthony Albanese. Can Australia continue to rely on its most important, most powerful ally if this is the way it treats them? These are all questions and doubts which it's hoped will be answered when Donald Trump comes here tomorrow to give that address to Congress.
Rob Scott in Washington, thank you. Now let's go to National Security Editor Tim Lester in Canberra. Tim, the Prime Minister's now open to sending troops to Ukraine.
Yes, Mark, and this comment from Anthony Albanese has surprised many here. Of course, Australia has a rich history as a peacekeeper. Think East Timor, Bougainville, also the Solomons. But this would not be an Australian lead mission. Australia's role, if indeed it ever happens, would be more modest and it would be a long way from home. A government source tells me that Anthony Albanese here is really expressing his values about the war and his support for European leaders.
There's discussion at the moment about potential peacekeeping. We're open to consideration of any proposals going forward.
In terms of whether we should have boots on the ground in Ukraine, I don't support that.
I think the Europeans have that task.
Of course, we're close to a federal election. The two leaders now clearly diverging with their views on peacekeeping. This could be an issue they fight for voters on.
Extraordinary times. Tim Lester in Canberra, thank you. And 7 News will have live coverage of President Trump's address to the American people tomorrow from 1 p.m.
An explosion at a house in Sydney South sent 2 people to hospital with extensive burns, including a man who's now critical in a coma. Detectives are investigating whether cylinders of nitrous oxide contributed to the blast.
With burns to more than 70% of his body, critical care paramedics put the victim of this morning's blast into an induced coma, as a woman also inside was walked to an ambulance.
2 occupants in a bedroom where an explosion has allegedly occurred. A male patient suffers some significant burns in a critical condition.
Crews were called to this Hurstville home just before 9 this morning following a brief but powerful explosion.
There was no obvious signs of fire, but there was reports of some type of explosion, more of a flash fire, some sort of gas or product being ignited.
A jerry can brought outside along with what investigators suspect led to the blast, tanks of nitrous oxide. It has legitimate uses but is also known as laughing gas, often abused as a recreational drug. It's not usually explosive but can react violently with other materials and cause more powerful blasts. Emergency services say this man's injuries are so significant they may prove fatal. Investigators now working to determine exactly what happened in the lead-up to this morning's blast and whether it was simply an accident.
They'll work with police forensics independently but together to actually have a look at how this event occurred.
Andrew Denny, 7 News.
The hunt for a man wanted by police has come to a dramatic end in Parramatta. Matthew John Langford had been on the run since allegedly ripping off his ankle bracelet just an hour after being released from prison. It prompted the Premier to ditch the system, allowing private companies to monitor alleged criminals.
It's clearly not working. We've had enough and the evidence is in.
Langford was caught after allegedly leading police on a pursuit through our west.
Thousands of Year 1 school children will sit a new maths test next term in a trial to gauge their numeracy skills. It's part of a federal funding boost for New South Wales education worth $4.8 billion over the next decade.
They may be the Prime Minister and the Premier, but never too late to be schooled. Given a lesson today in cut and paste.
Now, which ones go which?
After striking a new deal for school funding.
Why is it that public schools aren't fairly funded? Today that finally ends.
$4.8 billion in federal money over 10 years, now meaning a quarter of the cost of the state's public schools picked up by the Commonwealth.
It's not a blank cheque. We want to make sure that it's tied to real reform.
From next term, in 150 public schools, a new trial of numeracy screening, maths questions to Year 1 students, checking their recognition of numbers and addition and subtraction. It's getting in before kids are assessed by NAPLAN.
It's too late to wait till 8. You've got to intervene early.
The Premier also promising targeted tutoring in schools, undoing the damage of large merged classes.
We can have intense small groups so that no child is left behind.
Money from the deal begins to flow next year, impacting classrooms, and the state government hopes turning around falling enrolments in public schools. By better competing with private and independent classrooms.
This gives them the same start line. For too long, public education students have been behind the 8 ball.
Chris Marr, 7 News.
See ya!
Tonight, 7 News can reveal the Defence Force was well aware of China's plan to deploy warships around Australia days in advance. It's intelligence that was kept under wraps by the Prime Minister, even though he came in for plenty of flack.
Taking an interest in how Dora managed to become school captain.
Won an election. Won an election? Can you give me some tips?
Just have a good speech.
There you go.
In a more formal question and answer setting, asked if China really did warn Papua New Guinea of its naval task group 2 weeks before he knew. The answer, no.
We gave a heads up to Port Moresby.
Government, intelligence and diplomatic sources confirming to 7 News Australia did inform PNG after receiving Five Eyes intelligence outlining the task group's plans several days before it sailed near Australian waters, including its intention to circumnavigate Australia and conduct live fire exercises.
I have absolutely no doubt that the Department of Defence knew exactly where these warships were.
Sources confirming Defence did, mobilising continuous air and sea surveillance with New Zealand, but still learnt the live firing exercise was underway from a passing Virgin jet.
This Prime Minister had no idea about the presence. He didn't know what to do.
Senior sources tell 7 News Anthony Albanese had known about it for weeks, but respected intelligence protocols by not talking about it. On Sunday, saying this.
What we don't do at press conferences is relay what intelligence information the Australian government receives.
The task group now 314 kilometres southwest of Perth. Mark Riley, 7 News.
The Pope's seesawing health has dipped again badly. He's been put back on a ventilator to help him breathe. Europe correspondent Ben Downey joins us live from the Vatican. Ben, what caused this latest setback?
Yeah, good evening, Ange. Well, over the past 24 hours, the Pontiff suffered 2 isolated breathing crises, effectively caused by a build-up of mucus in his lungs. He had suffered one of these and then recovered only to immediately suffer a second. Now, his medical team says that he's now on a breathing apparatus, and this is being caused by his double pneumonia, the reason that the 88-year-old is in hospital. Now, we don't know currently if the Holy Father is critical or stable. His medical team instead is withholding his prognosis because his medical condition is so complex. He had been showing positive signs, but these setbacks, well, they're coming more frequently now. And what optimistic experts had originally thought might be a Friday discharge from hospital, well, the Vatican now says that any talk of a timeline is premature because he's far from out of danger.
Ben Downey at the Vatican, thank you. Police are on the hunt for a driver and a passenger who ran from the scene of this crash in Sydney's eastern suburbs. Just after 1 a.m, the car slammed into 2 other vehicles parked in Kensington and flipped onto its roof. A woman in the back seat was treated for minor injuries before being taken to St Vincent's Hospital. Our city's most famous landmark, the Harbour Bridge, is full of rust and in desperate need of a makeover.
But if you look up, you'll now notice a massive operation has officially kicked off, painting the steel arches in time for a very special birthday.
A harbour bridge blitz busting rust. An army of painters coating 150,000 square metres of steel on specially mounted scaffolding.
A lot of it's done with brush and roller.
The arch last painted in the 90s.
So you were painting the last time they did this?
Yeah. I'm the longest serving on the steel as we speak now.
Gee, how have things changed since then?
Oh, plenty of changes. There was no real rules or anything. Anything sort of went.
A special arch maintenance unit just arriving from Germany to help speed up the job.
A cross between a crane and a lift, it moves on the bridge.
In 2020, a secret transport report 7 News obtained took aim at the bridge's deterioration. Work then put off due to a lack of funding.
This just hadn't been done properly. The patches of rust on the bridge just wasn't good enough.
Transport hiring 12 extra painters.
Applications have now closed, but there will still be opportunities in the future for those looking for a new challenge.
The job will take 8 years, ready in time for the bridge's 100th birthday.
I've seen the 75th, 90th, now I need to see the 100th, and I'll be happy with that.
Gee, that'll be a proud day.
Yes, I will.
Serena Andaloro, 7 News.
Time to check the weather now with Angie Asimus. Angie, there's a lot of rain heading for New South Wales.
Sure is, Mark. Tropical Cyclone Alfred is on track to deliver flooding rain to northern New South Wales. So why, after moving away from the coast and stalling, is it about to return? Well, a high-pressure system in the Tasman's the reason. Anti-clockwise winds around that will steer the storm west. The system looks to make landfall between the Sunshine Coast and Gold Coast. New South Wales will feel impacts like high tides and damaging surf, and that warning zone stretches from the border right down to the southern tip of the mid-north coast. But rainfall is likely to be the biggest threat locally. This stretch of coastline shows widespread falls of 200 to 400 millimetres, but some pockets could see much more than that. I will have another update a little bit later in the bulletin, Angela and Mark.
See you then, Angie. Thank you. Ahead, breaking news on Cyclone Alfred's impact on the NRL, what it means for Friday night's Rabbitohs game. Also, a Sydney beauty clinic shut down from a fake doctor to spreading viruses.
Bricks thrown in a big Fairfield bust-up, the online comment that sparked it.
A new scammer trick you won't believe, targeting Sydney suburbs, our exclusive investigation after sport.
Seeing a doctor just got easier, how you can now do it from your own home.
And heartache for Dolly, the cruel blow for a country music icon. Welcome back. Bricks have been thrown with sticks and a knife used as well during a wild street brawl in Sydney's west. A father of 6 was attacked when an online feud escalated. 4 people, including 2 teenagers, have now been charged.
A fight between family friends on a Fairfield front lawn. 40-year-old Mohammed Al-Dobi is ambushed, attacked by 2 men and 2 teenagers who allegedly came armed with a knife, sticks, throwing punches and bricks.
Really loud, big bang. A bit scary, yeah, because I got my son, young kids at home.
Police arrived on Rosina Street, breaking up the chaos while paramedics treated Mohammed Al-Dobi and another 21-year-old man.
I see people coming this way, and police is coming.
Officers arrested Ahmad Abarach, a 16-year-old boy and 17-year-old boy, as well as 38-year-old Khaled Al-Halabi, allegedly called in to help defend Mr Al-Dobi. All 4 have been charged with the fray.
How do you feel about the charges?
I don't speak English.
This month-long dispute started following a misunderstanding online where Mohammed Al-Dobi reacted to a message from Ahmad Abarach's wife in a WhatsApp group message with a love heart. But now there's no love lost between a group of old friends. Bill Hogan, 7 News.
Former Australian of the Year Richard Scolyer is recovering from complex brain surgery after recent scans raised concerns. He's posted pictures smiling from his hospital bed, thanking everyone for their support. In 2023, the medical professor was diagnosed with brain cancer and given months to live. He made himself a medical guinea pig, trialling his own experimental treatment. Last year, he declared he was cancer-free.
Customers of a Sydney beauty clinic may have been exposed to blood-borne viruses such as hepatitis B and C and HIV.
Staff, including a fake doctor, performed invasive treatments without proper infection control, sometimes marked for veterinary use.
Their procedures were spruiked as fast and painless to improve the look of skin. But clients of this city clinic could be left with a lifelong disease instead.
There was evidence that needles and medications might be reused between clients.
Ketthip Sussex Street has now been shut down after multiple customers reported dangerous side effects.
Bruising and disfigurement that occurred following a procedure at the clinic.
A staff member was a fake doctor.
The practitioner is not registered in Australia as a doctor or a nurse.
Health authorities are now urging clients to get tested for hepatitis B and C and HIV.
Experts within the industry are calling for better regulation across the country. Right now, each state has different and sometimes conflicting rules, allowing rogue operators to slip through the cracks and potentially cause harm.
Dermatologist Dr Shami Thiessen says there are ways to know if a clinic is safe.
Really look at their previous track record. Check with your GP about the validity of these clinics.
If there's any doubt, walk away. Natasha Squarey, 7 News.
2 people have been killed and dozens more injured after a driver ploughed into a crowd in the German city of Mannheim. Security cameras captured the car being driven at speed towards thousands of people who'd gathered for parades to mark the start of the carnival season. Police quickly arrested the driver, a 40-year-old German citizen. They believe he was acting alone, but his motive isn't yet known.
Dolly Parton's husband of almost 60 years, Carl Dean, has died. The country music legend met her longtime partner outside the Wishy Washy laundromat in Nashville when she was only 18. He would inspire her hit song Jolene, but he shunned the spotlight throughout their life together. Dolly announced his death in a social media post, saying words can't do justice to the love we shared. Carl Dean was 82.
Stay with us. Lots more ahead in the next half hour of 7 News. After the break, why Western Sydney suburbs could finally get the trains they need.
Holiday hell, the tourist hotspots that's washing away, will reveal where.
An urgent warning for families. Sydney's kids' health at risk.
A big opportunity to snag a rare number plate, but there's a catch.
Never before seen what breaking the sound barrier looks like.
Battle of the Beaches, Sydney's best revealed. That's next.
And ahead in Sport Live from the AFL launch, why the spotlight will shine solely on Sydney in opening round.
There'll be hell to pay if South West Sydney doesn't get better public transport, according to its mayors.
With an exploding population, they've united across party lines to demand better just ahead of the federal election.
4 South West Sydney mayors with one rallying cry.
Keep on digging.
A coalition of business and councils calling on state and federal governments to commit to urgently expanding rail infrastructure across the southwest.
20,000 people a year are moving into southwest Sydney, and those 20,000 people are bringing their cars with them.
With fears the Western Sydney Airport Metro will be a train to nowhere.
We are not seeing any real benefit, any real connection to that big major piece of infrastructure.
The group wants to extend the airport metro line south from Bradfield to Campbelltown via Oran Park and Narellan, connect the heavy rail from Leppington to Bradfield and extend the electrified T8 line to Picton and Wilton.
We simply cannot rely on a diesel rail link where the freight actually has the priority.
But the Premier says the state just can't afford that kind of infrastructure.
Without me adding billions and billions and billions of dollars to the debt.
The timing of this new push is no accident. The federal election is now just weeks away and the southwest will be a must-win for both major parties, with 4 marginal seats and hundreds of thousands of voters in play.
If we don't do those 3 things, the southwest is going to be stranded.
Taylor Aiken, 7 News.
Thousands of people have been forced to flee and dozens of homes destroyed as Japan grapples with its worst forest fire in 3 decades. It follows record low rainfall and the country's hottest ever summer. At least 1 person has been confirmed dead.
Cars have been washed away in Spain's normally idyllic Canary Islands. All this raging water was caused by a sudden storm. A lot of people had to be rescued, but remarkably, no one's been reported missing.
Parents and grandparents are being warned unless there's urgent action, half of all Australian children will be obese by 2050. Experts are now calling for immediate government intervention.
More children than ever are facing a crisis that could last a lifetime, with a new study revealing that in 25 years, 2 million Australian children and adolescents will be obese, a further 1.6 million overweight, young women most at risk.
Between 1990 and now, overweight and obesity has doubled globally, and the rates of obesity alone have tripled.
Experts warn the next 5 years are critical, and without immediate, large-scale policy changes, children could face a lifetime of serious health issues. The Murdoch Institute recommends the government introduce taxes on sugary drinks, ban junk food advertising, and pay for healthy meals at school.
And it would be terrific to see our political parties come forward with some really clear thinking and plans around how we as a society are going to, better address overweight and obesity in children.
GPs say the most important thing is having access to a doctor to be able to monitor your child's health. And with many families unable to afford healthy food options, they say education is key.
We need to not be fat shaming the next generation and actually really motivating them towards a healthy lifestyle because it's fun and because it's good for them.
Jennifer Beshwati, 7 News.
In what some might see as a controversial choice, Manly has outclassed Bondi on a list of best beaches in Australia and the South Pacific. With its great breakfast spots and vibrant atmosphere, travellers have given it first prize, calling it the centre of everything on TripAdvisor's Best of the Best list. Bondi was second, followed by a beach in French Polynesia and Turquoise Bay in WA. Surfers Paradise rounded out the top 5.
A new scammer trick targeting Sydney suburbs coming up. How couriers are stealing cash from people at their front door.
The blockbuster's back. Why this year could be cinema's biggest.
Plus, the new convenient way Sydney families can see a doctor for free. Details soon.
And soon in Sport Live from the AFL launch, how Reid Marnie handled rumours the Dogs wanted him gone.
Hello, live sporting events made us big spenders in January. Retail sales rose 0.3% as consumers ate out while watching the cricket and Australian Open. The gender pay gap is getting narrower, but not by much, with women still earning just 78 cents for every dollar earned by a man. And a steady supply of weight loss drugs has helped lift telehealth startup Eucalyptus's revenue from $78 million to $121 million. On the markets, the ASX 200 slipped today as Donald Trump doubled down on his tariff threats. That also caused the Australian dollar to slip below 62 US cents. And don't bank on another interest rate cut. The minutes from last month's RBA meeting show the board intends to tread carefully.
Millions of people tuned in to watch this year's Oscars. Hollywood now launching a marketing drive, hoping to lure fans back to the big screen.
But there's a big difference between what wins awards and what works at the box office.
These are the movies Hollywood hopes will bring audiences back to the box office, many tried and tested formats. From Superman to Jurassic Park and Snow White.
You'll be safe from the Queen here.
Over 300 films will be released on the big screen this year, studios banking on remakes and reboots to get audiences back to the cinema.
But it is a tough market. Ticket prices have jumped 17% since 2019, while the time it takes for something to go from the big screen to home release has gone from 90 days to as little as 30 days for some releases.
But the industry remains positive.
We've got a heap more titles releasing than last year. We've got a constant slate of films coming through, and we're seeing audiences come back in droves.
Hollywood's hoping the Oscars act as a marketing campaign, reminding us why we love going to the movies.
Where did we fall in love with the movies? At the movie theatre.
But films celebrated on Hollywood's Night of Nights are often not the ones that sell seats.
The ones that are so popular for like Gen Z, they're never like at the Oscars.
If something had won a lot of awards, it might make me go.
Hollywood's banking on it. Sally Bowery, 7 News.
Sydney car lovers are being given a chance to own some of Australia's rarest number plates. 30 will go under the hammer in Leichhardt tomorrow, expected to fetch millions of dollars when they do. The number 2025 is thought to be one of the most sought after in the auction. Last year, a New South Wales number 1 plate sold for $12.4 million.
We know what it sounds like, but ever wondered what going supersonic looks like? This is the XB-1. It's just been photographed, breaking the sound barrier. This never-before-seen image shows the jet creating shock waves as it goes faster than the speed of sound. Even better, there was no audible sonic boom. NASA is hoping the test flight can help speed up the return of supersonic air travel that's much quieter.
Scammers sending couriers to your door. Still to come, it's the new trick and it's working, ripping people off, how to avoid getting stung.
And see a doctor in your own home for free. It's now possible. We'll show you how. Don't miss those stories soon on 7 News. But first, it's back to Mel for the AFL season launch. Mel, Cyclone Alfred is really impacting our big sporting codes.
Good evening, guys. Yeah, Fergo, that's almost an understatement. The AFL has postponed 2 matches and the Dolphins versus South is now in Sydney. More details up next. Plus, as the New Look Dragons prepare to take flight, the star recruit urges their notoriously fickle fans to be patient. And the big gamble the Aussies were forced to take before their Champions Trophy showdown with India. Welcome back to Luna Park, where the AFL season is being launched this evening. The upheaval caused by Cyclone Alfred shortly. But we begin with rugby league, and Reid Marnie has reaffirmed his commitment to the Bulldogs. Rumours the club was looking to offload the feisty hooker were put to bed by Phil Gould last month.
Bulldogs hooker Reid Marnie says he's no niggler.
It is what it is. Nothing I can really do about it, so I don't go out there to come across like that.
Face to face, plenty of rivals say otherwise.
Reid! He went looking, Reid Marnie!
I stand up for my mates that I play with, and we're a strong, exciting team, and we don't stand down for anyone. So that's just how I played my footy.
The hooker grateful club boss Phil Gould stood up for him, quashing reports of a surprise exit by Marnie.
Have the big man say that feels nice.
Playing game 50 for Canterbury, Marnie's keen to catch up Saturday night with former Eels teammate, now Dragon, Clint Gutherson.
Are you guys still mates? Any chat between you?
I hate him. I actually haven't messaged him, so I think he deleted my number.
Bragging rights bound to be celebrated by Dragons or Dogs supporters.
Their fan base and our fan base is probably the two of the bigger ones in the NRL, so I'm sure the hill at Cogra is going to be a sea of red and white and blue and white.
In his first game since breaking his leg last April playing for Souths, new Dragons half Lachlan Ilias fills the big shoes of Ben Hunt, pleading for patience from fans to develop a pairing with Kyle Flanagan.
Don't expect it to be Cooper Cronk and Billy Slater straight away, but it's going to work.
Andrew McKinlay, 7 News.
Well, the impending arrival of Cyclone Alfred has forced the NRL to move Friday night's game between the Dolphins and South to CommBank Stadium. The Dolphins are wary of a Wayne Bennett ambush. Plenty of people have written the Bunnies off after the injuries to Latrell Mitchell and Cam Murray, and that's just how the master coach likes it.
That's when Wayne thrives. Anytime we were lacking in players or had a lot of injuries, he can really get you up for a game, and he's against us now, so it'll be a weird one, but we'll be firing in.
Cody Walker is the new captain. Campbell Graham returns for his first game since September 2023. Well, to the AFL now, and the spotlight will shine exclusively on Sydney in opening round. With Cyclone Alfred bearing down on southeast Queensland, the two matches scheduled up north have been postponed. Season 2025 now begins on Friday night with the Swans versus the Hawks at the SCG.
Just hours before the season launch at Luna Park, the AFL made the tough call to delay the start of the season.
We're thinking of everyone in southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales as they face into the cyclone.
With Albert predicted to hit on Thursday evening, the Lions versus the Cats at the Gabba and Saturday night's Suns v Bombers clash on the Gold Coast will both be rescheduled.
Yeah, it was a tough decision, but in the end we didn't have any alternative, and want to call out to the Players Association and the four clubs involved.
It makes Sydney the sole home of the Sherrin this weekend. Swans versus Hawks at the SCG on Friday night, then the Giants and Collingwood at Angie Stadium on Sunday.
Great opportunity again for us to launch the season. We're really proud to be involved in it.
Back at his old school today, North Rocks Public, Kieran Briggs knows better than most that serious inroads are being made.
It's managed to just grow exponentially over the last sort of 10 years, and I guess I've been able to see that firsthand living in Western Sydney.
Already undermanned, the Giants copped another bizarre blow this afternoon. Coleman medalist Jesse Hogan ruled out with a broken thumb. He got it jammed in a door. Nick Markham, 7 News.
Ahead of a blockbuster Champions Trophy semi-final, India brazenly claimed they haven't benefited from getting to play all of their games in Dubai. Before the showdown was locked in, the Aussies flew to Dubai early to get used to the conditions, banking on India beating New Zealand in their final group game.
We guessed right in the end, so ideal to be here and outside of a pretty strict sort of bubble, I suppose, in Pakistan with the security and stuff.
I think it's important for us to just keep focusing on what we need to do.
India refused to play in Pakistan, so the ICC reached a compromise. Well, state and federal government funding for our para-athletes will double to more than $60 million in the run-up to Brisbane 2032.
To get to see in my career that investment happening and to know that that's what our next generation of athletes is going to get is incredible. We've been working for it for such a long time.
Maddie Di Rosario intends to compete in Brisbane at age 39. You wouldn't put a podium finish past her, guys. There's a lot of excitement in the air. Of course, unfortunate circumstances that have led to Sydney being really the centre of the universe for the AFL. The who's who are here, and the excitement is certainly very thick for opening round.
Yeah, 2 wins from 2 games over the weekend would be very nice, Mel. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks. Mel. Scammers are going next level, even sending couriers to elderly people's homes to pick up cash.
It's one of several new ways people are being conned, and police want to hear from any victims.
It looks like any old ATM, but this machine is the scene of a crypto crime.
It's becoming very challenging to understand what potentially is a scam.
A woman in her 60s invited to join a money-making scheme on social media, coaxed into coming here to Warringah Mall to invest $300,000. That money now gone. Police also investigating a pop-up message urging a Cromer woman in her 80s to call Microsoft Cybersecurity. She did and gave the scammers remote access to her computer and her accounts.
We believe that these notifications come to at least if not more than 50,000 devices a day.
Almost $320 million was lost to scams last year, over 65s falling victim the most, handing over almost $100 million. Investment scams the most popular trap.
These are highly skilled operations.
Possibly the most alarming was a scam involving a Monavale woman in her 90s who received a call from a man claiming to be from the Commonwealth Bank fraud team. He convinced her to withdraw several $1,000s and sent a courier to collect it from her house.
That does take it to a completely new level.
A new campaign urging Australians to stop, check and, if in doubt, reject. Amber Laidler, 7 News.
A visit to the doctor just became easier with free virtual appointments being introduced across Sydney. Without needing to leave home, patients with non-life-threatening illnesses or injuries can now contact a doctor or nurse on a video call.
And it was all on screen, so I could actually see her in an office environment. And I was in a waiting room for maybe 2 minutes, and that was it. It was amazing.
To access the Health Direct service, there's a 1800 number now on our screen to call to make a booking. It's hoped it will prevent 85,000 unnecessary emergency department visits each year.
Firefighting is no longer just for men. In tonight's Bright Side, these female fireys are proving women are just as good, maybe even better.
And wild conditions are picking up on the state's coastline. Warnings also in place for Sydney beaches. Those details next.
Tonight's 7 News headlines: 4 million people bracing for Cyclone Alfred, the northern rivers in the firing line.
Police investigating terrifying threats of a mass shooting at an Edmondson Park mosque.
And Donald Trump suspends all US military aid to Ukraine, turning the war with Russia on its head. Now here's Angie with the latest on Sydney's weather.
Thank you, Mark. We've enjoyed long sunny breaks in Sydney today. Showers were quite patchy and that allowed for a warm top of 27 degrees in the city centre. Didn't feel quite that warm due to the southeasterly breeze though. A few showers also tracked across the metro region overnight and then on and off today. A widespread 5 to 10 millimetres recorded. Some pockets saw a little bit more. 25 degrees was the top at Camden. Tops reached 27 degrees for Manly and Cronulla and up to 29 at Richmond. Taking a look at the satellite, Tropical Cyclone Alfred is currently a Category 2 system and has started its path towards the coast this evening. Westerly winds coming off that high down in the Tasman will continue to push it towards land now. A coastal crossing's likely over southeast Queensland late on Thursday or early Friday. And while cyclones need an ocean temperature of around 26.5 degrees to form, the ocean this far south is still unusually warm at the moment and enough to maintain that system. You can see the effects of that picking up in Brisbane tomorrow. Rain and wind increasing, 28 degrees. A shower or two for Hobart. The other capitals looking settled and warm. Tops in the 30s for Canberra, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth and Darwin. Back home, we will see those coastal impacts pick up. Locally heavy falls beginning about the northern rivers and mid-north coast. Fresh and gusty southeasterlies tending to gale force along the far northern ranges and far north coast. Hazardous surf from the border down to about the Illawarra coast. The metro region is looking settled by comparison. Just some morning showers easing during the afternoon. A top of 25 degrees on the way for Bondi, 28 forecast for Penrith with those cool southeasterly winds. On Sydney waters, southeasterly winds to 20 knots, so not too bad, but swell is really starting to pick up to 4 metres tomorrow. A storm force wind warning covers Byron waters, gales for the Coffs and Macquarie coast, while strong winds will develop as far south as the Hunter. The city tomorrow, some morning showers around 5 millimetres possible, a top of 27 degrees. That's above average with that big surf on the beaches. Now, for the rest of the week, it does remain grey and settled. Nothing too heavy over the next few days. The heaviest falls are expected over Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. Certainly a big few days ahead for the state. Angie and Mark?
Yeah, sounds like it. OK, thank you, Angie. Now, here's Grace Fitzgibbon with tonight's look at the bright side.
Tonight, as International Women's Day approaches, we paid a visit to the all-female fire crew blazing the trail. At Terrigal Station on the Central Coast, these ladies are on fire. 40 years since women were even allowed to join, this crew of fearless females can do it all.
I love the unpredictability of the job, the physicality. I love working with the crew. It's a really amazing team environment.
Straight out of school, I applied. I didn't get through, and then I applied the next year, and I got through, and I've never looked back.
What prompted you to take up this job?
It was actually a man that I once knew told me that I could never be a firefighter. That just made me more headstrong to achieve my goal.
Well, you sure showed him. What do you want to tell him?
Look at me now.
In fact, they often respond to incidents with no men at all.
How is it, ladies, when you turn up here and all the other women are here? Is it a good time?
Best time.
Yeah, we're sort of like, oh, chick truck.
With women still only making up around 12% of the force, it's inspiring work.
It's good to see that the kids see that there are females in the industry, and it's something that they can do as well.
I hope that fella's watching tonight. Now, the Fireys have launched their recruitment drive. They launched it yesterday, so if you want to join, get in touch with them. And if there's someone who shines bright in your community who you think we should feature, please email Grace at brightsidesydney@7.com.au.
That is 7 News for this Tuesday. We'll have updates for you throughout the evening.
Good night.
The 7 News app will give you the news you want.